Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. We are joined today by my friend Kelly Godfrey. I was connected with Kelly at the end of last year through a mutual contact, and she did a bit of work with me when I started forming Career Congregation, and I was doing some group work. And she joined for one of our calls, and I was immediately impressed by her very, very cool background. She's got a lot of experience, and she brought so much to just one group call and really inspired everyone on the call. So I thought that she would be a really great guest. She's got a lot of experience. She currently is a growth consultant. She has a consulting business called GrowBetter. But she's had a very long and diverse career that has gotten her to the point that she's at now. So I will hand it over to Kelly to give a bit more specific bullet points about her career currently. So, hello, Kelly. Welcome.
Hi, Megan. Thank you for having me on. And
Yeah.
it's great to hear the success of your podcast so far. So
Thank
very
you.
happy to be invited. Yeah, just in terms of a quick summary of my career, I've mostly been working in technology for technology companies, consumer technology companies specifically, and really my background or my career trajectory came through marketing roles, and then more recently, the past 5, 10 years, more sort of general management and more strategic growth kind of roles, which is hence my consulting business Grow Better. So I founded that 5, 6 years ago, really to start to build out a portfolio career, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
Really, I think is um, the future of kind of work really is around portfolio careers, and I wanted a brand to operate under. And I have had full-time roles in that time. Again, we can talk about, but
Mhm.
really Grow Better is there for me to consult and advise companies who are looking to grow in and transform in different ways.
Yeah, thank you. In the call that we had several months ago, it was like a group sort of coaching call, and everyone was bringing their different current struggles. And when Kelly stepped in to offer advice, it was so high level, and her experience really shone through. And I think everyone got so much value just from that, like 1 hour call. So I knew that you would have a lot to say, and it's very clear that you've got management experience, and you've worked at the highest sort of level in corporate environments as well. So that brings a lot to the table. So thank you very much for joining. Can you start out by telling us a little bit about your cultural background, where you grew up, early influences, family type things that shaped you into the woman that you are today?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm a born and bred Londoner, and was I'm back currently living in West London, not too far from where I grew up in Chiswick, and one of 4 kids, the only girl, so 3 brothers.
Wow.
Very supportive parents, and my dad sort of as a career was a career businessman as well, marketing technology companies, starting out with IBM, 22 years in IBM. So
Wow.
there's a little bit of a potential chip off the old block there, not just with myself, but with my brothers as well, working in technology companies and in sort of marketing roles. So he was kind of like the CEO of our house, and mum was the COO. If we actually our WhatsApp group is called Godfrey Corp, so it kind of just gives you a bit of an insight into the I guess the sort of humorously corporate nature of our family life, but very supportive family. Went to local community school, Chiswick School, and I think the other sort of thing just to note about my early childhood is my third space was a gymnastics club. So
Oh,
I from 7 through to 14, I was part of this gymnastics club and trained very hard, very long hours. And I think that Although I was never, I don't think, what you could call really great at it. It was about discipline, it was about community, it was about physical activity and friendship. And I think that it's always when people ask me about my sort of early years, I have to mention it because I do think it's contributed to who I am as
Yeah.
an adult and what I respect and appreciate and value. So I think I would also say I've always had leadership skills. I've always been what I would call a natural leader, and I'm never afraid to say that. If there's a leadership vacuum, I've always stepped into it,
Oh,
even
wow.
as a child. And that doesn't mean directing people. And that's not, people often get confused with direction and leadership. That's not leadership. Sometimes it is, but actually, leadership is also organizing and supporting.
One of our earliest guests, she actually did a really good job of explaining what she thinks is the difference between being like a boss versus being a leader. And she
Yeah,
went and did a master's degree in business with the intention of I want to be a boss. And she said by the time she finished, she was like, no, I want to be a leader. And she could
yeah,
really see the difference. And it's about helping people sort of step into their potential, right? And just and being there to
yeah,
kind of guide them, not tell them what to do.
yeah. And it's a really important distinction. And I did some management training earlier in my career, and really kind of one of the things I remember from that was you manage tasks, you lead people. Right. So it's very kind of different. I think the what people think about sort of what leadership is, but leadership really is about taking initiative and driving things forward from the front or the back or the side, and giving people what they need to do their best work. One of the things I remember reading about was like pro cyclists, like Tour de France cyclists, their management team basically ensure that when they need it, the right food is in their hands, the bed is there when they want to sleep, the tires are changed on their bikes, and they all they have to do is be amazing at cycling. Everything else is taken care of.
Yeah.
And I always love that because it's like, to me, leadership is like, I want to find and nurture talent and then just get things out of their way so they can do their best work. And
Yeah.
then, what that means is that you look good because your team are doing really well. So it works
Yeah.
out. But yeah, I would say, that was definitely something that I recognized in myself from a very early age. I had very strong work ethic from our dad. Our dad was working class from Failsworth outside Manchester, and
Mm.
and eat from a very young age. If you want something, well, you go and get a job then, earn some money, and then you can get it. And
Yeah.
I've always worked since I was 12, doing paper rounds. Weekend jobs through school and GCSEs and A levels and things like that. And I've always loved earning my own money and being independent. I think that's like quite a sort of core thing about me. And I've always loved travel and experiencing new things. I think that's something else that has just been
Yeah.
quite formative for me. I After A levels, I went off backpacking for a year, and it's just having that experience of different cultures and meeting people and just seeing this beautiful planet and different things was incredibly inspiring for me, and really sort of fed into my sort of desire later in life for travel, which I can talk to a bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess look at in terms of like my early career, I remember being really sort of a bit sort of stressed when I was, A levels and stuff. And what do you want to do when you're older? What do you want? I don't know. Who knows
You
when
did
they're a
all your
kid?
schooling in the UK then.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
went to school. Yeah, just Chiswick Community School in West London, and then did A levels there as well. And I didn't know what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do, but I knew what what I was passionate about. Really, I was excited by kind of technology and the future of technology, and we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, and
Um,
what an like that was around,
yeah,
that was when like computers were becoming like I think
Yes.
you and I both remember when computers were still a bit of a novelty, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Getting into tech around then is a really like how roughly how many years ago? Like
Yeah. I mean, like when I was at university, I went to university in Brighton, and I literally remember vividly the first time using Google. I remember it
wow.
like I can picture myself exactly where I was when I was at university in Brighton,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
a real light bulb moment for me. And I thought, there's something about this that's going to change everything. And I
I
think
can't
really,
remember when I first used it. I feel like I mean I there's got to be yeah, I just can't remember. I remember when
I
I got
just
my first Gmail account, but I don't remember when I first used Google.
Yes, yes. I had my Gmail account since 2005, but this would have been in 2001, I think. And was at a friend's house. He said, "Look at this new search engine." Because before that, we had Ask Jeeves and, we
Yeah,
had Yahoo and we had like some directories and stuff. But this was just on another level of how it worked, the results that it brought back. And you know, shortcut to a couple of years later after I finished uni, and one of my first sort of career jobs, as I like to say, it was with a SEO, search engine optimization agency that then became a digital marketing agency. So definitely, those sort of early, I think, insights that I had around technology and where humans and technology come together, and recognizing that this was a space that I was interested in and that I would probably be able to monetize quite well a
yeah.
career within that. And so that sort of really drove my path forward, I think, into consumer technology. And that's
What were
generally has
you?
done pretty well for me.
Yeah, well, yes, well done. That was good foresight to have as well. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I mentioned to you that I remember when I first used Facebook and I was at uni, and my
Yeah.
dad actually there was I definitely can relate with the family being like a corporation and like my dad, was CEO of a corporation, but then also of our family and like I communicate with my dad predominantly via email because that's just how he is. And people are like, why did your dad email you? And I'm like, that's just what we do. Okay. So
Yeah.
he he gave me a really hard time when I finished uni and I said that I wanted to work in social media because it was still so new. And he was like, that's not a real
Mm.
job. And then like fast forward, 5, 6 years later, and I was a social media manager, and it just to be able to see the link between tech and humans and media and all of it, it's good
Yes.
to have grasped that so early on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And what I see now happening with AI, it's really, really reminds me of that time, that early years of Google, because it started out with organic search listings. There was no paid ads on Google at that time. And, the growth was exponential. Everyone was using it and they're like, but how are we going to monetize this thing? If you think about AI, it's the
They
same,
always find a way.
they'll find a way, and I'm pretty sure Google will be the first to crack it. But because of only 5% of users are paying for AI tools at the moment, so it's really interesting time. But I've always been interested in in technology, and my whole career have tried to keep up to date with what's happening and businesses and innovation in that space. But I think if I think about the sort of tracks of my career, always underpinned by technology, but really there's kind of culture and commerce, So I think there's sort of where humans and culture kind of interact with commerce and commercial side, a very analytical side of my brain that fits quite well around sort of the commercial side of business, and how to monetize things and how to grow. And I think that those, when I look back now, it's easy with hindsight to see what those tracks are now, that have kind of woven through my career. But yeah, in those early days, I was just really excited about technology, excited about the internet. I was like, this internet's going to be big. I'm
Yeah.
showing my age now.
Well, I mean, I finished school, it was 2001. So if that's
Yes.
when Google So yeah, because I made it through
Yeah,
normal like grade school without Google, but it was right as soon as I
yeah,
finished, the internet
yeah,
exploded. Like everything changed the year after I finished grade
yeah.
school, which was
And
crazy.
it was an interesting time as well because it was the dot-com bubble burst. And actually, when I was at university, I did work experience at Ministry of Sound Digital. So I was,
Wow.
and the tech digital team, the website team, was a small team that had been reduced from 20 to 7 people after the dot-com bubble, and then the magazine team were next door 60 people. And this was all in the same building as the nightclub. So we'd have our like team meetings in the chill out room of Ministry of Sound, which was all very exciting. But I remember, that sort of work experience. And I guess this talks a bit to the other part of me where I'll always put my hand up and try and show my value. And they said, oh, we've been meaning to do like an A to Z of like all of our DJs, like a kind of directory page on the website. Why don't you build that? And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, I don't know how to build HTML pages. So I learned, and
That's not easy.
yeah, and I remember like, just asking people for help at the time. It wasn't like you could just ask ChatGPT, but I used templates, I learned code, I built this thing, and I wanted to build it because I wanted them to know that I could do it. And I could tell in their eyes when they asked me that they didn't think that I'd be able to. And I built it and I said, here it is. And they were like, oh, wow. And then they invited me back to work paid throughout the whole summer of that summer of university.
Nice.
So I think that that's definitely something else about me is like, just give it a go, you know, go into the unknown, work it out because the only there's not really any downside to just trying things, so just
Yeah.
just get stuck in and give it a crack.
Yeah, we in my previous episode we said that there was an element of, it's kind of like sometimes when you're thrown in the deep end and it's like fake it till you make it, right? Like
Yeah,
challenge accepted, let's give it a try, you know?
yeah,
And then you're
absolutely.
really impressed at how like the resources that come to you and how much you can rise to the occasion when you just throw yourself in the deep end.
Yeah, exactly that.
So after work experience at Ministry of Sound, what were some of your first jobs then?
Yeah, so living I went to university in Brighton, so I actually went to university and then stayed. I loved it, so I stayed there for 10
Yeah.
years. But one of my early career jobs that made a big impact on me was working for a digital marketing agency. So I think I mentioned earlier was sort of search engine optimization, and then they moved into other channels, paid search and display marketing, as it was called then, social media ads in
Mhm.
the early forms, and just one of the real amazing kind of foundational role as part of my career. And I would any young listeners to this podcast, absolutely, if you can get into an agency for the first few years of your
Yeah.
career, do it. The people that you work with will go on to be CEOs, and many of my good friends from that time have gone on to do exactly that, and other very successful career tracks. And so you work with super smart, you know, other young people, make friends for life, but also you get to work with different clients from different industries and different verticals. So you really get to understand business in a new way.
Mhm.
And also, for me, it was digital marketing, and that set me up for life as well, set up my career within that space, which was, again, kind of really a foundational time for digital marketing as a discipline, but being able to target specific people at a specific point in their life at a specific location. This was all kind of really groundbreaking at the time, and now it's kind of commonplace. But really, that programmatic approach and platform based approach to technology within advertising was kind of really groundbreaking at that time. And
Yeah, is that like the
yeah,
Facebook ads pay?
yeah,
Like I remember using that and being like,
yeah.
what? It was the early version of it was so not user friendly.
It was awful. Yeah, it was awful. I seem to remember it's called Beacon or something. Yeah, it was terrible. But just such an exciting time to be sort of starting out career in the world. And I loved that time. And I think that when you're early in your career, the bigger network you can make earlier on in your career, the more
Yeah.
value that network is going to deliver to you throughout your career. So any young person that asks me, what kind of job should I do first, I'm like, go to an agency.
Yeah.
You'll have the best time. You will make amazing friends. You will do really exciting work, and you will make a professional network that will nurture you throughout the rest of your life. So, yeah, definitely that was incredible for me. And then after sort of 3.5 years there, I went in-house and got a job in-house, so client side at
Mhm.
ancestry.com. And I think for me,
Wow.
that was, absolutely pivotal for my career was going to work for that company. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, family history, family trees, that's not very exciting. But actually looking back and obviously having had the experience of working there, it was absolutely incredible. Not just the people that I worked with there, but also as a marketer, if you go sort of underneath what it means to be who we are, right?
Yeah.
And that is such rich, fertile territory as a marketer. This is about family. This is about identity. This is about belonging. And this whole kind of experience is underpinned by technology. And so it was just incredible. And, the stories that we were able to tell and, the impact for me personally that I was able to make initially in the UK business, and then after 3 years and sort of I built a bit of a team. And then I had incredible bosses at Ancestry always. I was there in the end 8.5 years, and one of my early incredible bosses was very nurturing, and he knew I always wanted to live and work abroad. And this opportunity in Sydney came up, and then that's, you know, 2013, off I went for a year to Australia to cover a mat leave in the Sydney team, and ended up running that team for 4 years as the essentially the
Okay.
MD
So we were there at the same time.
in Australia.
Yeah, we were there at the
Oh,
same time.
we probably drank at the same pub, Megan.
We probably did. And we had mutual friends, but I think it's funny
We
that we
did.
didn't then
We
meet
do.
until we were both in London later. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean having lived there, what an incredible lifestyle, what an incredible place.
it's a good life.
Yeah, I went for a year. I was there nearly 12.
Wow.
So, career-wise, but also for my life, for my social circles, and just for, that sort of adventure of the Australian dream was, it's very hard to, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's, obviously another big milestone for me was moving down there. Again, a great boss that I had after that, who, I was given the environment that is perfect for me, for someone like me to succeed, and that is clear targets and autonomy, but with support.
Mhm.
So for me personally, I really excel in those conditions. It was like, here's how much revenue you need to make, Kelly. Here's how many units you need to sell. Here's the money to do it. Go figure it out. So, for me, and I obviously hired a team, had an incredible team, who I'm still in touch with today, and, did some of the best work of my life in that role for sure. We launched Ancestry DNA, which is a completely new category,
Which I'm gonna do
not just a new,
in the next
yeah.
couple of weeks. I will. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy a kit.
Yeah, you must. You must. It's a brilliant product, and very different for Ancestry. Very different from this sort of really solid subscription business, which essentially is the SaaS model, right? It's software as a service, but it's
Mhm.
consumer software, and very easy to model those businesses, very easy to model out the revenue because it's a subscription business. And then in comes this DNA product where it's a little bit more a one-off product, but really strategically it was designed to get people interested enough that then they would upsell across to the other side of the business. And it went down an absolute storm in Australia. You know, this is a land of majority immigrants,
Yeah.
and, you know, people wanting just that kind of quick hit of tell me something about me that I don't know, you know? And
You
so,
must have seen or heard like the most amazing stories working for Ancestry for so
incredible,
long. Like I
incredible.
know someone who was adopted and he did it just out of curiosity and found his
Yeah.
birth mother and like his family, and it was like a big secret. Like it was a whole thing. Like it was
Yeah.
wild when he told us the story.
Yeah. Super common. So many people have stories that they didn't know about their family that were discovered from this DNA product, and still do today. And I also remember it was almost like an easy way to sort of make friends and move around as well, saying you work for Ancestry, because immediately, you know, I
Yeah,
remember even being once at immigration in the US, and they were like, you know, really sort of, you know, they're really serious face and
they're
like,
so mean.
you know, and they're like, "Hello, ma'am. You know, who do you work for?" And I was like, "Ancestry." And immediately the face changes. Oh, I've got a, you know, my cousin's got this, you know, daughter, and then they found out. Like, you just get all these stories, and you're like, "Oh, really? That's amazing." But it was, yeah, fantastic company to work
Yeah,
for.
how cool.
Like, brilliant people. I was super nurtured, and I was super successful in my role, and I, you know, hired people and nurtured them, and they've gone on to be successful, and that's something I'm super proud of as well. And it was, you know, really the purple patch of my career, I would say, to date,
Yeah.
was that role as MD ANZ for Ancestry. So yeah, but you know, 4 years I did that, and then I just started to like, you know, feel I need to do something else. I
Need
need
a change.
to, yeah, I need a change of scenery. I've absolutely nailed this, and it's time for someone else to have a go. And at that time, there wasn't opportunity to kind of transfer within, or there probably was, but it wasn't the right time. So I left there and decided to take a career sabbatical, and
Okay.
it's like another big you know, big moment for me making that decision. And one of the reasons that sort of pushed me to that was I applied for the executive program at Stanford, and I got in, and I was like, okay, I'm going to Stanford. So
Wow. Congratulations.
yeah, so thank you. And that was again like just an incredible experience, and I would say to anyone that is considering it, just do it. You know, executive level education for me, you know, you're obviously, by the nature of it, you're further into your career. You're at a point where, you know, you're probably looking about, okay, I can look back at my career today, and I want to look ahead at the what's my career going to be in the future, and I want to learn about business, and I want to meet people from all over the world. And that course was absolutely pivotal in my life, and one of the best experiences. You know, we were 6 weeks residential, living on campus.
Oh, 6 weeks. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, six
how
weeks
long
of
ago
just
was
like
that?
that was 2018.
Okay.
So yeah. So this sabbatical, I decided I'm too comfortable. My life's my life's too good right now, which is just a
Yeah.
crazy thing in retrospect to think. But I was, you know, I was like, I need to shake things up, and I need to be less comfortable. And
Well,
that's
and you
something
know,
that,
for growth, like in
yeah,
psychology and in coaching, like that's actually a really important part of it, is
yeah,
that you fall into like complacency, and
yeah,
people get bored. And actually, I think it was, Jay Shetty.
yeah,
I've heard a couple analogies around this. I don't know which ones are real and which ones are just made up. Um, but one is of like a butterfly, and when right before it's done with its cocoon stage and ready to become a butterfly, it's part of its growth process is that it's the first time it ever uses its wings, and it's
mm,
exhausting for it. It's like giving birth. It has to push really hard to break apart the
yeah,
cocoon, right? And then it becomes the butterfly. And if you assist it in the process, like if you see it there trying to open up and you help it open up, it will die because
yeah,
it doesn't have the strength that it needed to become a butterfly. And then I heard another example that I think was Jay Shetty, and it was they were doing the is it the biodome where they got everything, in case, people have to live in greenhouses one day because the earth is too hard to live on. They put everything under these domes, and everything did really well for like 2 years, but the trees kept getting to a certain point and they just died, and they could not figure out why, and it was because they weren't experiencing the stress of like extreme weather. They weren't having any wind, they weren't having any
Mm,
rain, and it was like this perfect environment, and so they just couldn't grow past a certain point because they weren't strong enough, because
yeah.
we need that. And as humans it's the same. Like, we say we want all these like creature comforts, but actually we have to go through these periods of like change and stress, otherwise it's
Yeah, we
boring.
really do. We really do. And yeah, that period for me was really pivotal for that reason. And I decided to manufacture situations of
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 doing
growth for myself. So Stanford was the first where I just knew that for my mind I would be like really stretched, but also I would have to deal with the imposter syndrome of being amongst all of these like global CEOs and all these really successful
Mhm.
people, and sort of hold my own and really define my narrative of who I was, and that was an incredible experience for that reason. And then I also went to Burning Man, did that.
Yay, I did that
Um,
too.
and then a couple of months later, I rode a motorcycle across the Himalayas. So I,
Wow.
really just kind of, the amount of times I nearly died, I swear, on that trip, but it was so
Wow.
hard, but it was so amazing. And I knew that it would be hard. And I did it to really just feel alive and to kind of deal with the challenges that would come along the way of doing that. And then I ran a half marathon at the end of that year. So I did all of that within 1 year, which is crazy. Now I look back at it, I'm like, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah, but it was your year to live.
It
Like,
was, it
yeah.
was. And I guess, the learning there is like think I think taking time out of your career is incredibly valuable, but don't waste it. you know
Mhm.
do some stuff that you just don't often get a chance to do. And look, some people have families and that's the stuff they need to do, is spend time with their little ones, but that wasn't my situation. So I was like, that's it, I'm gonna do the
Yeah.
things that I know help me to grow, and that is experiences and discomforts in different ways: mental, spiritual, physical, endurance wise. And so that was, yeah, just an incredible time in my life, and also quite scary because leaving Ancestry, I was like, who am I without this job?
Mm.
This is my identity was so tied up with that. And it was scary. I was here, what do I do next? Ancestry had been like a safety net, I think,
Yeah.
support and a safety net for so many years. And so it was also scary, and it was always on my mind throughout that year of like, so what do I do next? Um,
Yeah. And it's tricky as well because it's like, how comfortable you could be, but as soon as you start, and I say this with clients as well, but like once the whispers are there to sort of
Mm.
step away from what you've been doing or start exploring something else, they don't go away. So you could have,
No,
maybe stayed longer at Ancestry, but just the staying would have started to make you incredibly uncomfortable.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm someone that when I feel like the change is coming, then I have to just
Hmm.
rip off the band-aid. I'm one
Yeah.
of those people. I couldn't stay in a job where I wasn't, if I felt there was a bad situation and it was stressing me out day to day, I wouldn't, and didn't feel like I could fix it, I would get out of there. And I
Yeah.
think when we had that conversation with the group a few
Yeah,
months ago,
that
I
was
think,
that was such valuable insight. Yeah, so when we
yeah,
did the group call a few months ago, there was someone on it, my friend, who she is a short-term contract, but it was a very very bad situation for her. It was really unprofessional. It was causing her so much stress. And you were like, get out. You were like,
Yeah.
there's nothing valuable about this experience. Just
Yeah.
leave. And your
And
advice,
she had a couple of other opportunities of other work as well. It wasn't like she was kind of going into complete, nothing land. And but I do think, yeah, like life's too short. That kind of stress can erode you very, very quickly.
yeah,
Erode your self-worth and your self-esteem, self-confidence, and before you know it, you're kind of a shadow of your former self, and you're doubting yourself and all of this. And I've been in those situations. I've had workplace bullying. I've, had, really difficult situations because I'm a little bit Marmite. Some people love me, some people are like, what's she on about? So, there has been situations in my career where it's been very, very stressful, and I'm like, this needs to change.
yeah,
So yeah, those experiences, definitely we have to take those learnings from them, and we have to help, have those insights help our future selves if those situations happen again. But it's at the time, it's just all encompassing, isn't it? If you have
yeah.
work stress, and it's normally always people. It's normally always to do with
Yeah,
people.
pretty much always. It's either people
Yeah,
or like redundancies, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So it's
redundancies is, I
budget
think,
cuts or people.
yes, yeah. And I've experienced redundancy a few times, and it's, it gets easier the more time, because you realize it's generally not personal. It's
Mhm.
a business decision. But I think certainly when you're earlier in your career, people talk about workplaces like, oh, it's like a family. I say, don't do that. It's
Yeah,
not a family. It's really
completely.
not. Think of it more like a sports team. You have to be part of that team, and contribute to the performance of that team. And if you don't, you'll be benched. And if and then you'll be dropped.
Yeah,
And I know that sounds really harsh, but that's really a much better analogy than a family, because
it's so true.
families are unconditional, and
And
that is
they'll be
not
there
what a
for you no
business.
matter what. And in business,
Yeah,
like it's a hard pill to swallow, especially when you're
yeah,
young and if it's your first career and you love it, but you are completely replaceable and you always
yeah,
will be. And the business
yeah,
will prioritize the business every single time over your well-being. And that is
yeah.
just a fact.
There's a reason why it's called human resources, because you're a resource to the business and you're a human. It's
Completely.
like it's human HR teams don't work for the employee, they work for the business.
Which
So
is
just,
it's very funny
yeah.
timing, talking about HR on the back
Oh
of
yeah.
Coldplay
Oh
crisis,
yeah, of
which
course.
I don't want to get into too much, but the irony of that situation being it was the head of HR, uh,
Yeah.
which that was quite funny. So
Yeah. I mean, who knows, but it was pretty funny to just to I think a few things I've read is, which is actually really true about it, is that every now and again the internet delivers something that the whole world can kind of unite on, and that was one of those like little moments. Obviously, no fun for the people involved, but for everyone else, it was like, ooh, look at this. So those little moments, sometimes you got to take,
to connect humanity.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
Oh,
from the everything that led you up to kind of the Stanford course and like
yeah.
the fun things that you did in that year, um, were there any kind of rock bottom moments? I mean, it sounds like you've dealt with difficulties in the workplace, but is there anything that you think kind of like floored you or changed your trajectory?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked a bit about sort of workplace bullying early on in my career.
That's a big one.
Was a really, really big one. And in fact, that this is when I was pretty young. I'm not going to sort of mention company names and things like that, but the person who was bullying me ended up getting fired. So I sort of like won
That's
that
good.
battle because
Yeah.
people saw what he was doing to me. So. But yes, and then, redundancies. I mean, that year I left, or those few months after leaving Ancestry, that was really, I was lost at sea, even though I had a plan.
Yeah, I've been through
Because,
a few,
yeah,
like three or four
yeah,
different big companies I've worked with, redundancies. It sucks.
yeah,
It
yeah, it
sucks. Yeah,
sucks. And
really.
I think, especially if you've been at a company a long time, it's like I mentioned before, it's that sort of identity, like who am I if I'm not this person? That's something
Mhm.
that you have to go through as well. The pandemic for me was a real rock bottom, I think, for many people.
Yeah,
But I moved to a new city. I moved from Sydney to Melbourne, and because of lockdowns, I couldn't really meet people. I didn't really have friends. I couldn't leave the country to come back to the UK to see family. And it was just a really rough time, I think, for everyone. And because we couldn't travel, I couldn't travel. The company I was working for at that time, I couldn't travel to go and sort of meet the leadership team and all the things that had helped me build social capital at Ancestry. I was not able to do so. I think that learning from that for me is you have to spend time together with people you work with in order to form bonds, in order to, brainstorm effectively. And, these things are especially hard when you're like in Australia and everyone else is in the US or in
yeah,
Europe. You're really, it's a real struggle. You have to get together in person. And that was yeah, some real low points for me there. But yeah, like I say, it's almost always about people. And there's you know some learnings that I've had over the time, which is questions that you should ask before
hmm,
before taking jobs sometimes, or before
yeah,
taking on projects. Understand, try and do a bit of sleuthing and understand if someone else has been in that role before you, how long they lasted, and things like that. I will say,
yeah,
because sometimes you end up getting stuck into a mill of, maybe founders or certain people who just churn through people. And that's a painful experience that I've learned in my career as well. So,
yeah. I
um,
find that
yeah,
like asking about or figuring out about the turnover, because obviously if
yes,
there's a very high turnover, people aren't happy for some reason.
yes,
And then if you're feeling bold enough in the interviews, ask, at the end when they're like, "Do you have any questions for us?" Other than the, intelligent questions you've prepared about the business, be like, "Are
mm,
you, do you like working here?" Or like, "What's your favorite thing about working here?" And you'll see very quickly if they're bullshitting you. Like,
yeah,
you'll know if they hate their job if you phrase the
yeah.
question right. Like, what keeps you here? Why are you still here? What brought you to this company? Do you love it?
Yeah.
Um,
And also, what happened with the last person that did this
yeah,
job? Why didn't it work out? Like, just, it's difficult because in the moment, often you just want to do everything you can to win that work or win that job. But ultimately, by asking the difficult questions up front, you will save yourself pain down
yeah.
the road,
And I think
finding
once
out
you've had
that,
a few
yeah,
difficult experiences that you don't want to repeat, you become more bold to be like, okay,
yeah,
like, why is this position available?
yeah,
Tell me the truth.
exactly. Yeah, or yeah, why didn't it work out with the last person, or and obviously also asking about ways of working. How do you like to work? If you're talking to a future potential boss, and making sure that you sort of listen to that and formulate a way to work that fits both parties. But sometimes, yeah, it just things don't work out. Other times, you know there's trauma, and you
Mm,
have to process that, and you have to have self-compassion. And something I've learned as well is that you know you probably haven't done anything wrong. I mean, I work so hard. I want people to value me. I respond very well to positive feedback, especially from people that bosses and clients that I'm working with. And I want to do a good job. I've always wanted to do a good job, and I've always been prepared to, put the extra time in to make something really brilliant, a piece of work. And so when something doesn't work out, and it's very hard to not take it personally because it is personal, it feels personal. But quite often it's not about you, it's not about the work you've done. So I think my advice when those things happen in career is like, feel the pain, go through it, let yourself be hurt, have self-compassion, and then with time, remember to reframe it that those things that hurt the most will give you the biggest learnings. It's just in that time you can't feel it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But like we talked about earlier, really, growth comes from things that hurt. We don't learn when everything goes well. We learn when things don't go well. And so even though at the time it's yuck.
Yeah, the expression is you grow through what you go through.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right, isn't it? It's exactly right. So, but yeah, they're painful, and I think the other thing to just comment is I know so many people, similar age to me that have these really amazing careers and you sort of get to a point where you're kind of things get harder. The more senior you get, it's almost like there's more egos, there's more politics, you're on bigger salaries. You kind of always feel like unless everything's going really well, there's always a target on your back.
Yeah.
And it's not as fun as when you're kind of in like mid senior level
And you have
roles. It
less
kind of gets
responsibility.
it's
Yeah.
responsibility, but responsibility again to me, it's in that I don't really mind that. It's the politics. It's the sort of people trying to sort of climb over each other, things like that you sometimes experience, and that's really hard as well. But I will just say, like, I know that there is so much talent that like people kind of got to senior levels in their career and they're out there, like me, looking to sort of build portfolio careers now and trying to work out how that works and how you can make that work because there's always the lure of a salary.
Yeah.
It's really hard to deny, especially when you've got big mortgages and things like that. But I
So is
think,
this is
yeah.
the sort of stepping stone into how you formed your consultancy business?
Yeah, so after Stanford, I was extremely inspired to, use innovation and or the power of innovation and technology and creativity to solve the world's problems. Really, that's what the ethos is of kind of Stanford, right? It's like, how do we innovate our way to a better world? And how do we change the world through innovation? Essentially, is that kind of, and I was so inspired by that, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that, and I founded GrowBetter in order to, with a sort of view to consult with, I guess, startups and scale ups that are building products and services to solve the world's problems. So whether it's climate tech or health tech or, an area where I have expertise and can lend my expertise, that was the vision for Grow Better. Has it sort of, evolved to be that? Not as much. I think you can't be super
Mhm.
specific when you're consulting and out there in the world looking for work. But ultimately that's who I am. That's what I want to do. And that's what drives my passion. And I think again, life stage, you get to a point where you're like, how am I actually helping? How am I paying it forward? How am I, you know, driving? How am I going to leave the world a better place than when I found it? All of that kind of stuff becomes much, much more central to the kind of things that you get excited about. And that was the vision for Grow Better, was to work with other people who feel the same way and build out this sort of consulting business. And in many ways, I've done that, and I've worked with wellness companies, and I'm working with a sports governing body right now, which has been awesome, and really enjoyed that. But sort of my first proper kind of experience within public sector, which has been an eye opener as well, having come
Yeah.
from private technology companies. But yeah, I think the future, especially for knowledge workers, is going to be much more about portfolio careers. So having different clients, having different projects, doing fractional work where, sometimes younger companies want your experience, but they can't afford to pay you full time.
Yeah,
So it's like, okay, cool, I'll do 1 day a week. Like the amount of value we can add in 1 day, I think, even in my career, is similar to what you used to be able to do in 3 days, just because of AI tools and things like that. So we don't have to work. I think in 10 years, very few knowledge workers will work a 5 day week. That's my
I
prediction.
completely agree. I completely agree. And I mean, I like circling back again to that call we had, the amount of value that you added in an hour. I was like,
Oh,
she
thanks.
knows what she's talking about. Like this, that she has worked, she has so much experience, and you gave such sound advice and like completely I can see you doing the portfolio career, providing your expertise to like three or four different companies. I mean, and
Yeah.
how does that work? Do they just like, would they have you on like retainer or?
Um, Generally, it's just time based. So,
Okay.
days worked based, but there will always be a few strategic projects that, someone needs help on. And that I've found that to be a real strong point for me because I can dive into any project in any organization, do a bit of stakeholder kind of speak to everyone, read all the things I can read, look at the data, look at the reporting, speak to everyone. And pretty quickly, I'm like, I can see where you're getting stuck.
Yeah.
And I sort of build out a narrative of like, here's the background, here's where you are, here's your potential way forwards. And then I'm like, which one do you think you should take? And they're like, oh, clearly it's that one. I'm like, right. you know, quite
Yeah.
often quite often the answer's there, but teams get stuck sort of back and forth. And the other thing I found is that sometimes third parties, people, agencies or other people that are working with my clients will not fully understand what the need is. They'll say, yeah, we can build that for you. But really the question should be, what do you need to be built? Or
Yeah.
like, what's the business need? And then we'll work out what the solution should be. So I've been able to add, I think, quite a lot of value, bringing clarity, doing that sort of top level vision, bring clarity, prioritization, and momentum to projects. And that's where I seem to have been able to do a good job and get good feedback.
It's very solution focused.
It's all about output. Yeah, it's really about output and, how do we approach it and then how do we ensure that we're focusing on what the output is of this project rather than the actual project itself. People
Yeah.
get so bogged down sometimes with layers of complexity and different stakeholders and who's in charge of this and this. And actually, I think that my skill is bringing sort of simplicity to that.
Hmm.
And I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it, especially when there's an outcome and everyone's like, oh, okay, that feels good. That feels right. Let's implement that. And this might be something that, has been worked on or gone back and forth for months. And I've
Hmm.
just come in and I've done 2 weeks of like research, discovery, stakeholder interviews, gone in and done a workshop. And at the end of the workshop, it's like, there you go.
Yeah.
And again, it's not me, it's not me. It's just through that sort of asking the right questions and coaching approach. And the answer is always there from within teams. They just haven't, gone down the right pathway to, once I take them down that pathway, it's like, this is clear. And then it's not about who said who wants. It's like, this is the business need. This is the best solution.
It's like being a coach or a therapist for a business. You know,
Yeah,
'cause
it
it's
is
just
a bit.
talking about the problem out loud and then being able
Yeah,
to really identify it and then you have can work towards a solution. And I think
yeah,
when people don't stop to reflect on it with like an impartial external person,
Yeah,
you get lost. You get lost in it and you can't see, the woods for the trees or whatever. But when you've got
exactly.
someone that can come in, hear you out, and then it's like, okay, well, there you go. Well, this is your block. Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
it really, really straightforward.
absolutely. It's the power of fresh eyes.
Hmm.
And I've been both sides, in-house and all the complexity and, prioritization, different teams and resources and, but sometimes all it needs is that fresh eyes. Just say it's really clear and not someone telling you, but someone guiding you towards, as the CEO or something, guiding you towards what is the clear way forward. And it's, such a big relief, I think, for when you're able to do that for everyone involved. It's like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Thank you so much. I was gonna say if you have any like final words of advice that you want to
Mm,
offer anyone, um, maybe something that like a younger version of you needed to hear.
yeah, yeah. I think a couple of things. Number one, the most value you're ever going to get in your career is from your network. So
Yeah.
build it, nurture it. That's where your future jobs are going to come from. I think that the work landscape, applying for jobs, I think that whole thing's broken right now because we haven't caught up with technology. And build your network, nurture it. Those people will employ you in your future self. So number one is that. Number two is always keep learning. It's super important to feed your brain in whatever way you choose to do it. But that Stanford course for me, some of it was like whew, way over my head, but other stuff really stuck, and I still remember it now. But learning is super important. And finally, when things suck, it's okay to feel shitty and have self-compassion, hug yourself, it's not your fault, and give yourself time and fresh air and nurture your body, get good sleep, and in time you'll look back and you'll be like, because of that I can now see this thing that I couldn't see before. So there you go.
Wow. Mic drop. Perfect. Thank you,
Oh, it was lovely,
Kelly.
lovely to talk to you today, Megan. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a deeply inspiring thought. My brain is spinning on all the wheels now. So thank you very much.
Good.
And
Thanks, Megan.
yeah,
And yeah, we'll chat again soon. And good luck with all the things happening this week for you.
yeah. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Okay, better go. Bye.